The Aesthetic of Melting Ice. Part 1. Winter. Cold snowflakes and pale purple ice crystals drift around the icy figure, trapped in slow motion, too many of them out of place. It makes her want to freeze the world around her, make it stop so she can properly put herself together. She hates having a packed schedule, but the clear water elemental insisted it would be worth her time. The ice elemental pauses a moment before entering Luminous, adjusting a few of the snowflakes and crystals floating around her, moving them to the front of her dome. Luminous is a lovely venue. She generally prefers the larger venues, but she understands why so many elementals like Luminous. The crescent moon layout is unique and works quite well. Cold. The water elemental calls out. "I'm glad you could make it." "I'm glad I could. It's nice to see you," the ice elemental answers easily. "So what is this show I need to see?" "You'll love it. It's called New Spring." The ice elemental resists the urge to leave right then and there. "I've heard whispers about that one," the ice elemental says instead. Whispers enough to know she wants to avoid this show. "No!" the water elemental whines playfully. "I wanted it to be a surprise." "Only whispers," the ice elemental insists. But those whispers with the title, and someone excited to take her to the show, paint an obvious picture. The elementals make their way to the center of Luminous, accompanied by the sounds of popping fizzes, the soft twinkles of icy mists, the hisses of winter dashes, and the gentle chirps of spring days. It's terribly predictable. So terribly predictable. They settle in, order some fizzes themselves, and wait for the show to begin. The ice elemental orders a light shot, while the water elemental orders a winter dash. The water elemental hasn't ordered an icy mist in the ice elemental's presence since their first meeting. The icy figure might have been a bit too brisk with her remarks. She's tried to be a bit warmer since. A winter elemental floats to the center of the stage, and the ice elemental feels the last bit of hope leave her. A flurry of snowflakes covers the winter elemental's core like a cloud. Even though the ice elemental can't see it, she knows it's a spring core. It's exactly the show she was expecting. The actress is a quite skilled emittance stylist. The flurries dance around as though blown by sporadic gusts from all sides. It's a refreshing way to portray nervous energy, especially compared to the spark-like bursts that have become so overplayed recently. Overplayed by inexperienced, lazy, or generally lacking actresses who don't understand why it worked for the storm elemental and doesn't work for them. She appreciates it when actresses understand how to use their style to accentuate their element. It's a difficult skill to master, one she respects. The ice elemental downs a bit of her fizz, letting the light burn within her while her crystals shine. The beginning of the show is a slog, a series of awkward interactions meant to show why one shouldn't hide behind their emittance. None of the other performers are as good as the winter elemental. The fire elemental must be new, given how safe her acting is. There's a silver elemental who is fine, just fine, nothing more to say. And a light elemental who uses those overplayed sparks to show surprise. That seemed like an overreaction, the water elemental murmurs. The ice elemental shifts some of her own snowflakes and crystals. It's a poorly acted reaction. The show finally begins to shift out of the horrible build-up into a competent climax. Not decent, but competent. The winter elemental is confronted by a friend, presumably just a friend, because the elemental can't be in a romantic relationship while she's hiding a part of herself. The friend is a sand elemental who is clearly the second best actress. She's not impressive, but she's better than the rest of the cast. "This isn't you," the sand elemental insists. "It's not?" Snowflakes flutter around the winter elemental. She doesn't answer. "It's hurting you," her friend continues. "Is it? If she didn't act so fidgety, it wouldn't be a problem. I'm fine, the winter elemental says finally. But you aren't. It's stressing you out. It's the awkward interactions that are stressing her out. The snowflakes begin to fall away, and the audience can see the beginning of some pale blue flowers. The ice elemental is certain that the actress wouldn't have gotten the job if her acting weren't as impressive as it is. A winter elemental with pink, yellow, or even purple flowers, spring-colored flowers, wouldn't need to act as well. I need this. There's a reason it's a part of me. The winter elemental continues. Why would my emittance be different from my core if I didn't need it? That dialogue is horribly clunky. It could have easily been cut. There is a reason, the sand elemental says. But that reason isn't to hide your core. The rest of the snow falls away, and the sweet scent of flowers drifts through the venue. Perhaps that sweetness might have given her the edge if she were a less impressive actress. This is the real you. Is it? Are the cards you're given really more important than how you play them? The ending of the show is bland. The spring elemental meets all the elementals she had met previously, and they all welcome her, embrace her, love her. It's beautiful, isn't it? The water elemental asks, finishing his fizz. Water is softly lapping at the edges of his tendrils. He really enjoyed the performance. The icy figure has barely touched her own fizz. A little rough around the edges, she answers, forcing herself to down a bit of her fizz. But still a solid show. A solid performance. What did you think of the story? The water elemental asks. Predictable, the icy figure answers. Simple. She should say more. But there's something nice about that, isn't there? The ice elemental asks. There is, the water elemental agrees. The ice elemental takes in a bit more for fizz. Well, he has held off longer than most. May I ask you something? You just did, the ice elemental says playfully. But I suppose I'll allow another question. The water elemental bubbles. It took the water elemental a bit to appreciate the ice elemental's humor, but he has come around. He's one of the few who seem to genuinely appreciate the ice elemental's sense of humor. Is your core ice? The ice elemental adjusts one of her crystals. What do you think? I think so, her acquaintance answers. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure why you would hide your core. But why would you evade the question if you weren't? I like the allure of the mystery. I think you're alluring with or without the mystery. Do you know how much of me is the mystery? I'm flattered you think so. Part 2. Fall. The icy figure continues arranging her cold snowflakes and pale purple ice crystals, letting them float through the air in front of her until they reach the perfect spot. The moment they satisfy her, she stops. Arranging her outer emittance is second nature to her at this point. She can throw something together at the last minute easily if needed. Most wouldn't be able to tell the difference. She doesn't, though. Not when she has a date. The first date after their last fight. After everything they've been through. The ice elemental tries to push their last interaction out of her mind. It was just one moment where things came to blows. Everything has cooled off. She adjusts one last snowflake before she begins tidying her place. It's never messy, never dirty, but she refuses to wait idly. There's a flare at her door, the familiar orange light. Come in, she calls out. Her lover enters the room. His gold and rose-streaked orange light is styled classically, his tendrils flowing like sunshine reflecting on the water. It's a lovely style, one she mentioned she was fond of a while back. She finds it reassuring that she isn't the only one who wants to place that last interaction behind them. You look beautiful, the ice elemental says. Thank you, the light elemental answers. You do as well. The icy figure begins to prepare fizzes as the orange light settles in by the window to watch the show. How have you been recently? The light asks. It's not a test. He wants this to work. I've been well. Things have been peaceful but enjoyable recently, the ice elemental answers. I've been to a few shows recently, to a few parties, to a few art displays. Have you seen the glass display by the new sand elemental? You're talking about the fairy garden, right? I only got to see it after I heard the whispers. I got to see it before I began really hearing about it in conversations, and I'm glad I did. I think the display was nice. I'd consider the artist promising, but if I had seen it after all the whispers, I think I would have been underwhelmed at best. I think underwhelmed is a fair description, though when I first saw it, I was admittedly a bit frustrated. I hate it when people throw unreasonable expectations on glass elementals while they're bored waiting for greatness. Another great artist will come along soon enough, glass elemental or otherwise. Elementals just need to be patient, the light says. The ice elemental passes her lover a light shot before beginning to prepare her own fizz. You don't think there's anyone great at the moment? The ice elemental asks. No, and I'm certain you haven't been impressed with any of the recent crop either. I haven't, but I'm not easily impressed. You're very stoic. So I've been told. A part of her regrets offering to have this date at her place. Another part of her regrets offering the fizzes. But the part of her that she listens to, the rational part, reminds her that her love is a light. He'll talk no matter what. The location and the fizzes won't change the outcome of tonight. Have you enjoyed any displays or shows recently? The light asks, downing half of his fizz. I enjoy most. I'm just not easily impressed. Which ones have stood out to you? The fairy garden is lingering on the mind because of the lingering conversations. Was that the only one that stood out? Did one stand out to you? The orange light downs the rest of the fizz. You saw a new spring, the light elemental states. I did. I went to see it with Clear. And you have nothing to say about it. I have plenty to say about the actresses in the performance I saw, plenty to say about the storytelling that was only competent at best. But you want to hear my opinion about the ideas it presented, don't you? Not the presentation. That defensive attitude is why I keep prying. The ice elemental takes in a bit of her fizz. I don't think I'm crazy for being concerned that I don't know what your core is. I shouldn't have told you it wasn't ice. I should have lied. Don't you think so? The orange light asks. You know my answer. My outer emittance is who I am, who I choose to be, who you love. It really is that simple. That's simple. I don't think so. Your core is a part of you, the most important part, more important than your emittance. It's the true essence of who you are. There's a boom of thunder. The orange light turns to the window to see the approaching storm. The sky is clear. Is the show starting? The light mumbles. I'd have to disagree, the icy figure says slowly. How can something be the essence of me if no one knows about it? How can something be the essence of me if I haven't chosen to embrace it? The light turns back to her, flickering briefly before stabilizing. How can your core not be your essence? The light elemental asks softly. I just explained why. Very succinctly, the ice elemental answers. You're the one who keeps presenting bland platitudes. There's the sound of droplets hitting the ground. Don't you think there's a reason that platitude exists? I think there's a common misconception. He flickers before he stabilizes. Something would not persist this long based on a misconception. The light says, I don't think you believe that. Could you please calm down a bit? Your wind is strong. Her outer amends has melted. A storm is beginning to rage around the room. Didn't you want to see my true essence? That's why you said nothing as I melted, right? Thunder booms, followed by a lightning strike. The orange light rushes out. The relationship was over as soon as she melted. The storm elemental knows that. She knew that. She wishes she could have been the one to end it. Part 3. Summer. The icy figure spends the morning arranging her snowflakes and crystals. She doesn't have any plans until the afternoon, but she shouldn't be wasting time like this, even if she has the time to. It took everyone a little bit to realize they had broken up, to realize they are avoiding each other. But when someone finally realized what happened, they went to the orange light first. It stings, but that was probably the right choice. She's not exactly sure what the light said, but everyone has picked a side at this point. Some began avoiding her, others began avoiding the light. A more extreme version of the time leading up to the breakup. They try to be quiet around her, but she still manages to hear whispers. Everyone is shocked, everyone is trying to place blame, everyone is trying to figure out what happened. No one knows why they broke up. No one knows that she has a storm core. For a moment, she wondered if the light meant to hold it over her. But Orange wouldn't do that. As much as the ice elemental hates him, hates how it ended, she knows the sunset-colored light isn't cruel. That thought bothers her like the afterbursts of a shadow kiss. It's not as bad as the initial sickly sweet hit, but the feeling of fading lingers far after that initial taste. The ice elemental was convinced a long time ago that no one would order a shadow kiss if it didn't have its dreamy, romantic name. The ice elemental floats out of her home. She doesn't know where she intends to go, but she needs to get out. The ice elemental has many reasons that she typically carefully plans her excursions in advance. Some are simple, some are less so. Some are easily understood, some not so much. Most she knows before she goes out, but sometimes she doesn't find them until it's too late. This is one of those times. The reason is following her core. She hates that phrase almost as much as she hates that she went here. The glass display is still busy with people expressing their disappointment. Soon enough, the topic will grow dull, and all that will be left are those looking for a forgotten display to pass a few moments of eternity with. And the few who fell in love with it. There's something reassuring about that elementals can love flawed pieces like this. One might even think it applies to loving other elementals. The concept of the fairy garden is a world of fairies with houses hidden in flower buds. If you look closely through the clear petals, you can see small, intricate buildings, each personalized to match the fairy sitting outside. Some more impressive than others, but for every lackluster idea, less polished or even sloppy house, there's a unique idea or a near-perfect execution. The ice elemental would be lying if she said she didn't know why this was overexposed. Why people placed it on a pedestal. It's an interesting idea with good technical skills made by a glass elemental. But she would also be lying if she said she didn't understand the backlash. The idea behind the concept isn't clear. It seems whimsical more for the sake of whimsy than anything else. The artist's refusal to explain her work was initially met with praise, but it might have been better in the long run to give elementals a narrative to run with. It would have given the whimsy a meaning, a moment beyond it being an overrated disappointment. That's probably the main reason, but the ice elemental can't help but consider another. The artist isn't smart. That might be a bit harsh, but the display is made up of clear flower buds and more opaque ones, more impressive houses and less impressive ones. The obvious creative choice would be to place the impressive houses in the clear flower buds, and the less impressive houses in the opaque ones. It's obvious to hide shortcomings. The ice elemental knows this probably wouldn't have changed the sentiment, but it's such an obvious choice she can't help but question why she didn't. She continues through the display, peering through the flowers, staying longer than she did before. When the elemental she went with the first time questioned why she wanted to leave so soon, she mentioned that large displays without narratives like this were best enjoyed as short excursions. Yet here she is, blowing through everything it has to offer. She'll be better equipped for conversations about the display in the future, so it's not a complete loss. Inside one of the flowers, she sees a fairy seated next to a grotesque monster. It looks like it's made of mittens, but the shape doesn't resemble an elemental. It looks more like one of the old creatures. A wolf, if she remembers correctly. Perhaps there is a meaning in this display. Still, it wasn't executed properly, but that's all the more reason to consider the artist promising, even if she isn't the brightest. The storm elemental wishes she could view her own core that way, promising even if flawed, even if inexperienced. But storms are destructive. Speckles of water appear on the glass and drip down like teardrops. Elementals begin to leave, heading to cover or displays meant to be viewed in the rain. The ice elemental remains as the rain continues. She watches it collect and drip down the petals of the flowers. It's warm. Without the wind, when the downpour is lighter, when the rain isn't so cold, it's almost pleasant. She wishes her own core were like that. Warmer, lighter, not so erratic. It isn't until later that night, with the sky clear, that it dawns on her. That was the first time she didn't wish her core was something other than a storm. That was the first time she was content with being a storm. The rest of the night goes by in a daze as the realization sinks in. She can't change her core, but she can mold it into what she wants to be. The next day, she lightens her schedule for the foreseeable future and gets to work. Part 4. Solstice. The storm elemental lets the snowflakes and crystals float away. They dance in the air just within her view before disappearing. Without them, she feels bare, even with the ice covering her core. You're home. No one's here. She lets the ice melt away from her core. The wind picks up, whipping around the room, sending the raindrops out to speckle the walls. Soon enough, the spots will disappear, and the walls will be covered with a thin sheet of water streaming down. Lightning strikes within her core, lighting up her entire home with a hot blue glow. It's unruly, uncontrollable. She wants to fix everything, cover everything up, and forget this pointless endeavor. No, she can't let this path forward slip away just because she's uncomfortable. She sits in the room, letting the storm rage on, taking it in, rejecting the impulse to start fixing things, rejecting the impulse to enclose everything in ice. No, this isn't something that can be fixed with a few simple adjustments. This will be a more demanding project, a long, grueling project, and to complete it, she'll need a plan. And to have a plan, she needs to observe. Observe the way things are right now. Confront the way things are right now. It's not the worst part of her. but it's the part that frustrates her the most, so she decides taming her wind will be the first stage of the process. And the first step of this stage is to keep her wind light when she sheds the ice. It should be a simple first step, but she's not so sure how to go about it, so she begins the necessary trial and error. Some days, she spends a whole day preparing to shed the ice. Other days, she decides to do it on a whim. At first, she can't find any difference, but she keeps trying, keeps observing. If she plans to let the ice melt, she keeps track of what she does that day. Whether she's trying to stay calm or agitate herself, if she lets the ice melt at the end of the day, she notes whether it was a good day or a bad day. Either way, after the ice melts, she starts trying to control the winds, attempting to slow them down, change their direction, make them stop completely. As time goes on, she starts noticing trends. The winds are stronger when she's experiencing stronger emotions, whether that be sadness, anger, frustration, excitement, or happiness. It was a frustrating realization. She had been hoping the correlation was not about the intensity, but about the type of emotion. The more promising pattern she noticed was that, over time, the winds became a little calmer, regardless of the day. Eventually, what was once a calmer day becomes a more agitated one. The winds never truly become pleasant on intense days, but they become easier to manage. But she keeps practicing her control, even starting to style the gusts, trying to replicate some of her favorite ice styles. But they just don't quite work. Once the ice is sculpted, it doesn't change unless it melts. A few crystals and snowflakes float around, just enough for her to easily style. The wind is constantly moving. Focusing on each gust is impossible, so she styles it in currents. And it just doesn't work with her favorite ice styles. Take it slow, step by step. You can learn to style it later. She still makes attempts. She just stops when they go too poorly. Eventually, even if the wind blows on those intense days, she can tame it. Not control it completely, but tame it enough. It's not perfect, but it's progress. The next stage is working on the rain. She focuses on the temperature at first, remembering that moment in front of the glass display. Remembering how other elementals always complain about cold storm elementals. She brings up the temperature, and it burns. The ice elemental flinches and lowers the temperature. She hates the heat. The other elementals don't like heat either. They want warmth. Something pleasant. She just needs to find a middle ground. The progress on her temperature feels slower than the progress on controlling her wind. It's just because I'm trying to do both. During the first few attempts, all she can do is hit extremes, freezing cold or blisteringly hot. Eventually, she can make the rain warm, but she can't do it consistently, and she can't maintain the temperature. And throughout the first few attempts, she starts losing control of the wind. It makes her want to stop and focus on the wind, perfect it. Every time she feels that, she spends a day just focusing on the temperature. It will get easier, controlling the wind did, but you have to start even if you fail, especially if you fail. She needs to get out more. She was planning fewer events to focus on herself, but it seems the lack of light orbs is making her mad. She finally manages to keep the rain warm, and she hates it. Well, she doesn't hate it. She just doesn't love it the same way she did in that moment in the rain. She doesn't even like it. She hates that. She hates that her goal was pointless. She just needs to move on to the next step. She needs to work on controlling the rain. The storm elemental manages to get the rain to fall delicately, consistently. It was a similar process to the wind. She almost found it enjoyable. And she enjoys the results. She still doesn't like the temperature of the rain. Part 5. Spring. The ice elemental shifts some of her crystals, letting them catch the light at perfect angles. As she gets into a rhythm, her nerves begin to fade. Making a nervous habit into a lovely but subtle style and calming meditation, it was one of her smarter moves. "I haven't seen you in a bit," the water elemental says. "I've been busy, but it's been too long since we've met up," the ice elemental responds. "It has," the water elemental agrees. They enter Shimmer and greet a few acquaintances. The ice elemental never spent much time at Shimmer before, but she's still avoiding her ex, still processing her feelings, still deciding what she wants out of their next meeting, still deciding if she wants to meet him again. Shimmer is a nice, quaint place. The decorations are limited to replicas of odd light displays made by lights chasing the popular trends of their eras, started by non-light elementals. Its style is definitely an acquired taste, but she doesn't mind it. "What show are we going to see?" the ice elemental asks, prepared for the inevitable. She's heard that there's a sequel to New Spring, and she doesn't intend to hide from it. "Fire Pit is having a bit of a renaissance right now," the water elemental answers. "That one?" "Really?" the ice elemental asks. "Yes. Fire Pit. The one and only." "Are you positive?" "Positive." "Why?" "If I had to guess, audience fatigue," the water answers. "Right, I forgot how equally popular and acclaimed New Spring was," the ice elemental says. Even with eternity at their disposal, elementals still manage to get annoyed when something takes up too much of the conversation. And with that, swing to extremes. "I think it was more deserving of its popularity than its backlash. But that's the cycle of a popular show. I don't mind the chance to see Fire Pit again, though." "It's a show that allows the performers the chance to shine," the ice elemental says, "if they take it." The performers were the worst kind of average. Cliched, overly inspired, reserved to the point of meaningless monotone. "That was a performance," the water elemental says as they leave. "Dull," the ice elemental says. "Dull," the water elemental agrees. "But that is the beauty of Fire Pit. It's a varied experience. Care to see if we can find the best?" "A little more time with him could make it a bit easier to reveal my core. If I decide to reveal it to him." "That sounds interesting," the ice elemental agrees. "If I do decide to reveal it, I can't expect to be so lucky a second time. Everyone would find out. Everyone will find out." The next day, she's able to control her wind and rain quite easily. And her temperature, which isn't as satisfying, but it's still good progress. The storm elemental hadn't expected it to be so easy. She had set aside more time that can now be spent on the next step. But first, she has a decision to make. Work on controlling her lightning, or figure out how she wants to handle the temperature of the rain. She doesn't want to do either. She decides to work on the lightning since she at least has an idea of where to start. Either stop the thunder or the lightning, and then work on the other. The first step to stopping either is to confront them both. She settles down and begins going through the events of the breakup. It's the most recent pain, the one that hasn't faded with time yet. She knows that eventually, if she keeps rewatching it, keeps reliving it, the pain will fade. Eventually, it will fade so much that she doesn't even feel it. A part of her fears it won't, but she knows it will. It has to. It will. It's reassuring that her storm doesn't start to rage until the breakup is right in front of her. Once the lightning starts, it's difficult to stop it. The thunder keeps rolling, pulled forward by an unstoppable momentum, while the lightning strikes at the unpredictable crescendos. She tries to slow the thunder's momentum. She has learned from her attempts with the wind and rain that trying can lead to frustration when she fails, but that doesn't matter. The storm elemental might not be able to slow the thunder down now, but she has a goal. And eventually, she will. The ice elemental didn't think a professional performance could be this bad. The light elementals were all over the place. One flashed brighter at random intervals. Another seemed to be doing a cheap rendition of the original performance. She couldn't even tell what the fire elemental was trying to do. The performer couldn't even maintain a consistent style. The water elemental is still as the show ends. They finish their fizzes and leave right after. The water elemental is quiet until they're quite a way away from the venue. That was horrible, right? I'm not crazy, am I? You're not. It was horrible. Unprofessional. The ice elemental agrees. But how does it compare? The water elemental asks. Is it better than the boring performances? Maybe even better than the dull ones? It was certainly an experience. That's an interesting question, isn't it? The ice elemental says. Don't tell the performers I said this, but I certainly know which one I would rather watch, even if I wouldn't say it was better. A part of that unprofessional performance sticks with the ice elemental. The bright flashes could work if the performer had a different emittance. A clearer metal would look striking with the flashes. Maybe even ice. The actresses in this show are far more impressive than the ones in the previous show. Despite the prevalence of New Spring's sequel, she wasn't expecting Fire Pit's resurgence to last this long. She's glad it has, though. It's been enjoyable going around with the clear water elemental, watching all the iterations. The ice elemental still isn't sure what to think of the water elemental becoming more than an occasional companion. She wouldn't have chosen the water elemental. But perhaps it's good she didn't choose. Someone choosing her. That shows promise. It might be a false promise, but even if it is, it will hurt less to lose him. The lightning proves to be more unruly than the wind and the rain. So much so that she wonders if it's even possible to control it. Still, there's direction, even if it doesn't feel possible. The icy storm hates feeling nervous. You shouldn't feel nervous. It's hardly a reveal. It doesn't matter how many times she tells herself that. The nerves refuse to fade. She's never felt like this before, and she'd prefer to never feel like this again. Preference doesn't feel like a strong enough word. It's just a test. She normally keeps her ice completely frosted over, hiding the storm. Now, she leaves some streaks clear, creating the illusion of looking through fog. No one can feel the storm. Her core will be trapped behind the ice, even if she gets erratic. But they can see it. They'll know what she is. A test I can't go back from. She knows that's the source of her nerves. And she knows she doesn't have another choice. If she wants to change, she has to go down this path. A path she can't go back from. A part of her wants to rush into it, to reveal everything all at once. To reach the end in a moment, just to know what happens. But I won't know if I do that. It won't end the same way. It won't end well. That doesn't calm her nerves, but it gives her the strength to move forward. The water elemental goes still when he sees her. You said this cast should be promising, the icy storm says, directing the conversation away from the obvious. She can't tell what the water elemental is thinking. Yes, I think you'll like the light elementals in this one. even if the fire elemental's performance is a bit cliched. The water elemental says, I like the new style. Keeping parts fogged over. It's mysterious. It suits you. The nerves fade. Thank you, the icy storm says. The icy storm did enjoy the light elemental's performances. The choice to spread their tendrils out to mimic the light of fire, rather than bunching them up to mimic fire, is inspired. The icy storm hears the chatter, but the world doesn't end. Some elementals comment, some ask subtle questions, but no one asks the obvious. She's grateful for that. She's also grateful she was right about the flashes of light, or lightning in this case. The occasional stylish flashes locked in the ice stun and enchant, as she knew they would. Even when the flashes were random, it worked, but now that she has control, the style is truly something special. Now all that's left to master is the temperature of the rain. She still doesn't like the warm rain. The storm elemental lets the temperature drop from warm to cool, not cold, but cool. It feels better. But elementals always complain about the cold. It's cool, not cold. She's not sure if that makes a difference, but if she's rarely going to let others feel the rain, she might as well do what she likes with it. She lets some raindrops fall along with her snowflakes and ice crystals. She lets it fall slowly, gently, slipping off the ice crystals like a fountain. It might be her best style yet, at least out of the ones that involve her core. Still, even as she floats to the venue, she wonders if she should make the rain a bit warmer. Let the rain freeze over entirely. The water elemental is waiting. His water tendrils are styled like the expanse of a calm lake. I've always enjoyed your simple styles, the storm elemental says, drawing his attention. The water elemental ripples. Is this your favorite? Is this your best? I think experimenting, trying to one-up everything. It drains me after a while. The water elemental answers. Do you think it shows? A little on occasion, but you know your limits. I've always admired that about you. Thank you. I appreciate it. It used to be a bit bitter, knowing I needed to stop when everyone else seemed to be able to push themselves further, far further than I could. But I think I've gotten more comfortable with it now. The water goes back to softly lapping at the edges. While I appreciate this moment of intimacy, I do think the more interesting style conversation right now is yours. It's stunning. Thank you, the storm elemental says, a question burning in her core. It might be the defeat I've waited so long for, but I can come back from this. The ice elemental can lie, and no one would ever know. Actually, I was a little torn about the rain's temperature, the storm elemental begins. Do you think it would be better warmer or cooler? The water elemental is still as he ponders the question. I think cool, maybe even cold rain suits the ice more. What were you thinking? She feels the lightning flash in her core. The raindrops and ice crystals glow like melting sunshine. I was leaning toward that as well, the icy storm says. You do have a natural instinct for styles, the water elemental says. I try, she says. For the first time, she fully understands it, the aesthetic of melting ice. Her new spring might not be flowers and warmth, but it's beautiful all the same.